German, and we are joined by someone who is not a stranger to the program. We've had her on once before, and this is Public Information Officer Inspector Michelle Lewis of the TTPS. Good morning, Inspector Lewis.
Good morning. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here and to sit in for my colleague this morning.
So one of the things, well, you mentioned that we could speak about, that I think it's becoming a bit of, it's the new, almost in vogue crime. Kidnappings was like this way back when, where it seemed as though, you know, people like to follow the trend, monkey see, monkey do, almost. And now I'm wondering, to some extent, is this just the fashionable crime? And that is home invasions. Because yes, it's happened before, and I've heard of situations way in the past, like decades ago. But now it seems like it's on the forefront, and it's a lot more. Well, we're just seeing so many back-to-back. One headline was just simply another home invasion happened. How is the police viewing the situation?
So yes, we have noted an increase in home invasions, and we generally say home invasions, but home invasion is really under the Larceny Act 1112 that speaks really to burglary or robbery. But it's a term that we generally use as home invasion, but when you're charging, you actually charge a person for robbery or burglary, entering someone's dwelling house in the night or in the day, depending, right? So we have noted, even during the Easter weekend, we saw an increase. When we look at the data from the crime and problem analysis, last year we had 115, and this year we have 119. So even though it may appear to be just 4, it is still an increase when we really should be working towards decreases in all aspects. So we note it, and some of the things that we really want to impress upon the public is helping. Now, I read the report in relation to the incident that occurred in Valsine, and there are some good takeaways from that in relation to the relationship with the police and the public, where the neighborhood watch groups were set up, the WhatsApp chats were set up. And even though that lady was unable to get through to 999 as efficiently as she would have liked to, because she was put on hold based on the story, the WhatsApp chat, which had a police officer in it, allowed her to get that quick results. So when we look at crime and how the police can help and how you can help, we look at proactive ways. So we still encourage persons in relation to CPTED, which is crime, which, as you know, CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design. So it's an acronym, CPTED. And then, of course, we still encourage community police, neighborhood watch groups, and that kind of thing. And it is still very, very effective. Where you have a community and you look out for each other, it helps 100%.
Well, so I think one of the things is that because they had the communication, I mean, the bad takeaway is that the 999 service didn't seem to expedite it, when that is, from what I understand, what it's there for. But there was an officer who was in the community watch group's chat group that was able to get that expedited response that made such a difference, one could argue, in this case, because the perpetrators were caught. Is this something that the public could seek to ask on a more regular basis? You know, we have a neighborhood watch group. How is it possible for every neighborhood watch group to get an officer on the group, or was it that there was an officer living in that community?
No, generally, for example, when I worked at the Belmont station there, I know that the officers there, we have the different communities within the Belmont Police Station District have WhatsApp chat groups. And they would have like the council of the area and the community. So an officer may be on several WhatsApp chat groups for such purposes. Now, like I am in a WhatsApp chat group for Malabar because I'm with the Malabar Police Street Club. So the SDOIC there has a chat group. So we would see when incidents or the residents would send information in that chat group that would cause the sergeant and assist the sergeant to assist in solving reports. So, for example, you might get video footage of something that just occurred, and they would send it that way faster, and then the police can act on it, and you're sure to get an arrest. So that the WhatsApp chat groups are very, very effective. they are very, very effective.
A reduction of serious crimes is something that we aim for. Would home invasions be considered serious crime?
Yes, yes, they are.
Okay. In that sense as well, I know E99, people tend to use that as a second option. The first option, and I've seen this with a number of households, is to have the number of their police station available to them. So, for example, if you're living in St. Augustine, it might be the Tunapuna police station. If you're living in Champlain, it might be the St. Joseph police station. And I know some households actually keep the number of the police station on their fridge, for example. But what is being done by the police service to try and ensure that the operators such as E99 and even at the police station, one, they answer the calls in a timely fashion and there is a response? Because it's very fortunate, as my co-host pointed out, that there was a police officer on the chat. If there wasn't a police officer on the chat, we might be speaking of a different story this morning.
Unfortunately, I have to concur with you there. So the E99 Command Center is hybrid. Having said that, I know that it is something that we are working on in relation to causing it to be at its optimum. So where crime and criminality is concerned, you must always have an option A, an option B, because anything can happen. And you always, for example, as you know, you're living in your home, you don't want it to happen to you, but you have to have a contingency plan or a plan in place for your family members should your home be invaded. What shall I do? How would you guide your children in what is a safe space if the person enters from this side of the house or that side of the house? So generally, when we look at the point of entries for home invasions, burglaries, it generally tends to be at an area that is not well lit, or the side or the back area of a home. Very rare do they actually use the front because that is the area that is more public. Now, some persons will want to try to save on electricity because it is a cost that you incur on a monthly or every 2 month basis, the case may be. But there's solar that you can consider to ensure that your home and around your home is well lit. You can also ensure that you don't have anything like ladders around your home that will cause anybody to get into your premises. Having the trees around your home at a minimum height so that when you are entering and exiting your home, particularly at the night time, no one can hide behind those bushes, because those are some of the qualities of SEPTA that we try to encourage communities to do. So well-lit area is a deterrent. Having security is a deterrent as well. In some communities, we see persons using the air horns so that it would send an alarm. And so residents, are using proactive measures, which is necessary because of the amount of illegal firearms and ammunition that we do have in the country and that we now have to contain.
Well, Inspector Lewis, I would argue that some of these measures are not proactive, they are reactive. For example, like the air horns are more of a reactive measure. I know in Valsin, for example, it became reactive because of the number of robberies that were happening. They decided that they're going to start utilizing air horns as a means to alert neighbors of an issue and to also alert intruders that, hey, neighborhood, right?
Aware. Yeah.
So I know it became a reactive measure, but why does it even have to get to that point? Because as much as I appreciate you sharing such measures with us, and I agree with you, be careful of a simple thing like a ladder in your yard, even scaffolding at night, if you're doing construction or renovations, all those things are factors to consider. But why does it have to reach to this point where you're living in fear or anxiety, even if you have such measures in place? I mean, could we really see that the TTPS is doing all they can to clean up the streets before it gets into my home or into my yard?
All right, so when we say proactive, we mean that, okay, you would have studied certain things, and based on the trends that you're observing, you're going to put contingency measures in place, should it happen to you. You may have an air horn and you may not have to use it at all. but you may have an air horn and the circumstances that arise that you actually have to use it. I have an air horn and I have had cause to use it based on the community that I reside in, right? So that it is still considered a proactive approach in relation to crime fighting and crime fighting strategies. Having said that, no. So the police get the product at this stage. Product being a youth, 14, 23, 31, we get the product at this stage. But the product would have gone through some processes before it reached to the mind of a criminal. And so some things didn't happen there. And now the police has to now fix it.
Respond.
Fix it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good way to put it. That's the expectation of the public, to fix it as opposed to just...
Let me ask you, and I know it might be, I don't necessarily mean to put you on a spot, but with all these incidents that have occurred within the last 2 weeks, and I can't speak to what might happen in the future, do you think that we're on course to reduce serious crimes by June?
Can you say that again?
Do you think that we are on course? I mean, given the level of trends and the current statistics, that the measures are working to reduce serious crimes. I know specifically probably murders will come up, but by June, do you think that...
In most of our data, surprisingly to members of the public, murders, homicides, alleged homicides are the figures that drives and carries the figures in relation to the performance of the TTPS in a bad light. Right. Generally speaking, in relation to SLCs, they're generally low. Overall, yeah, our data shows that. Because
murders as compared to last year, this year as compared to last year, up. And home invasions, I think you also mentioned earlier, by I think about 4, something like that.
For the weekend. But just for the weekend, for the Easter weekend. However, if you look at the entire month, when the month is finished, it may not have increased.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
One of my last questions, I'm not sure to what extent you're prepared for this, but we were lamenting the fact that one of the offenders in that incident was 14, as you yourself referenced. Is the TTPS seeing criminality more and more with younger people? So we're talking like you're not even 17, you don't even get your learner's permit yet, you can't even begin to think about legally drinking alcohol. 14, 13, maybe as much as 15, but in that range, when you're now a teenager, you have yet begun to even live. Are we seeing more youths becoming more active at that age?
I remember somewhere between 2015, 2018, the juvenile court justice system came into effect. And it came into effect for those very reasons, that we saw an increase in youth becoming involved in criminal activities and before the court. So that is something that has been established because of the trend that we noted taking place in the communities. So I have to say yes, based on the fact that under the Child Protection Unit, there is the juvenile centers, and of course, through the Children's Court, you're also seeing that. So yes.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. I hope that, you're always welcome to come back. I know we have acting SP Ashraf Ali. Don't tell him I said this. It's good to see you. I'm kidding, we miss you. But we need to start speaking about breaking the trends, because TTPS has to do their part, every citizen has to do their part, and rather than discuss trends, we need to start discussing breaking these trends. But thank you so much for your time.
And I agree with you, we do have to start to try to break the trends, and we have been. And having a program like yours and having the TTPS on helps us to do that. So this morning we were able to share some information to tell people how they can help. So they can get in relation to the chat groups, they can get, be your brother's keeper. Those things that you know long time that your family did, it's still relevant today. It's important that you look out for your neighbor. She might be living alone, he might be living alone. Yes. Look out for each other, communicate with each other and help. There was a time in this country when everybody just shut in and I was just focusing on me and my children and my family. You can't do that anymore, because it might be your home, it mightn't be your home today, but if you don't help, it could very well be your home on the next occasion. So it's important that we really look out for each other, and the police is always here to support. So we thank you for having us this morning.
Well, we also thank you guys for making the effort and for coming on the program. That's most important. And the seat is always there and always open and
We
available.
appreciate it.
So keep well and all the very best. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Thank